All right. Good afternoon. It is currently 3 o'clock, so I think that we'll start now. I guess Femi's spotlighted has the spotlight on now, so that makes it easier for people to see. I want to welcome everybody who signed up for this webinar and who have attended. My name is Julie Dirksen, and I'm the Senior Manager for Supporter Relations at the Canadian Food Grains Bank. I may have met some of you when I've traveled across talking to different reps in different communities. So if I have, that's wonderful. I just wanted to spend a couple moments to tell you why we're doing a webinar on legacy giving. I've been with the Canadian Food Grains Bank for almost 5 years now, and we frequently get questions. Reps in the regions get questions, as well as myself at the office, around different types of gifts, around planned gifts, around thinking through ways to maximize their impact with their gift to our organization, gifts that might have tax benefits to the individual, or that will create a greater impact if a particular tool is used. For some of the simpler questions, we will talk about them in-house. So for example, stock donations, maybe many of you have donated stocks to us, and there are some clear benefits to doing so, and we have a really easy system for it. But in the last number of years, I've received questions about land donations. I've received questions about remainder trusts. I've received questions about donation of preferred shares. As people's lives and resources get more complex, people aren't quite sure how to think about those to give in a charitable context. So because of that, because we are not experts in this kind of giving, we receive funds from agencies that a lot of our members work with that do have expertise in this. So we decided that we would invite different people from different organizations that do this work and offer those presentations to our supporters, just to give them some information, some basic information, as well as names of people they could call if they had other questions or had wanted to investigate some of these ideas further. So last April, we invited Harold Penner from Abundance Canada, and he did the same sort of webinar, and we had that posted on our website for the last almost year now. And today we've invited Maynard Wiersma, who is the Executive Director of Christian Stewardship Services, to come and to talk to us also about legacy giving, some of the impacts of this type of giving. What are some of the tools that you can use, and what are some of the impacts of these types of gifts? So we're very grateful that he has offered to come and to present this morning. I guess afternoon, depending on where you are in the country. So a couple of things. The presentation Maynard will speak. He has a presentation that he'll offer. Then if you have questions about what he's presenting on, feel free to put those questions in the chat, in the Q&A, like in the chat, so that we can respond to them, because we will have a chunk of time afterwards to try to answer some of those questions. And they're questions that are helpful to other people, or in the recorded version, they can be helpful as well. So if you put those questions in your chat, I'll be able to receive those, and then I will give them to Maynard so that he can answer them. And again, this webinar will be available as a recording on our website afterwards. So if maybe you've spoken to somebody who's interested, but they can't come today, we will send a link out afterwards so that you'll be able to access the link to this webinar. Thank you very much. I think then I will pass it on to Maynard and his presentation.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Give me 1 second here just to share my screen. So thank you for the introduction. As Julie said, I am the Executive Director of Christian Stewardship Services, and I've been with CSS now for about 17 years, going on 18, and have enjoyed my time with CSS. I started off as one of the field staff members or the consultants, And in 2012, I became the executive director. So we have 3 gentlemen who are on the road visiting with our donor community, and they're the ones that do the field work. And then we have a total of 11 staff. The remainder are administrative and financial and leadership staff. So without further ado, maybe I'll just get started. So my agenda for today, first of all, is a little bit of an introduction about Christian Stewardship, who we are. Secondly, talk a little bit about the landscape, the charitable giving landscape in Canada. Then talk a little bit about what is planned giving, what is estate planning, and also the advantages of working with Christian Stewardship Services. And I'll spend most of my time talking a little bit about some of the tools that we use on an ongoing basis. We have been in business for 49 years, going on 50. And next year we'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary. So we started off with a single staff member, and so we've certainly grown in that time. As I said, we have 11 staff now. We have 43 main partners and hundreds of Christian schools and their foundations who support them, along with hundreds of Christian churches right across the country as well. So we have quite a group of partnering organizations that work with us. Our mission is we assist Christians in their planning, giving, and managing of their God-given resources, and the idea is to accomplish His work. Our perspective is pretty simple as well. God is the owner of all things, and really that's what stewardship is all about. And we, as the stewards of what God has created, are simply entrusted to look after those resources for His benefit. Little bit of a biblical perspective. We come from a Christian community, and so just as I said before, we believe that God owns everything, and we're simply the stewards of what God has provided. In that context, God's provision is sufficient and abundant. We know that there are plenty of resources available in our beautiful world. And often it is a issue of distribution. We are called to care for both ourselves and each other, and then of course for creation as well. And our stewardship is really an act of worship and an expression of the faith that we have in God. So let me just give you a little bit of a rundown or a overview of the charitable landscape in Canada. First of all, Canada has a very generous donation regime, and we receive tax credits than deductions. And tax credits allow everybody to get an equal size refund or a benefit, regardless of the size of the donation or the size of your paycheck. So whereas deductions are dependent on the tax graduated scale that you're on. And then lastly, donation credits combine with federal and provincial rates. And depending on what province you're in, it's, in Manitoba, it's 46%. In Ontario, it's a little bit higher. And BC, I believe, is a little bit higher as well. And I believe that's most of where my audience today is from. So what is planned giving? Planned giving really is a process of arranging a major gift. And whether that's distributed during the donor's lifetime or at the donor's death, it's really an opportunity for a donor to plan out exactly what their gift will look like. Julie mentioned an appreciated security, and although that happens fairly quickly, it is a planned gift. There's a bit of paperwork involved and so on, so it is a planned gift. And so is a bequest. A bequest also falls into the estate planning category, but a bequest is an end-of-life planned gift as well. And so depending on the complexity of that gift and whether or not the donor is still alive or has deceased. That kind of dictates where that falls. So Julie did mention the donating excuse me, donating an appreciated security. So I'll just kind of go through that. We do that for our partners as well. And I understand that the Food Grains Bank is able to do that. A lot of charities do that for themselves. So what is a security? It's basically a publicly traded investment. A mutual fund, stocks, bonds, any kind of investment that is publicly traded on a stock exchange. So why do you have them? Well, basically because they increase in value, or we hope they increase in value. So if you buy some stock and they increase in value, the increase that you gain is called a capital gain, and that of course is taxable. 50% of that gain is included in your earned income, which then generates some tax liability on your tax return for that year. But the neat thing about a capital gain is it is only taxable when you sell your stock. So you can buy it today, but you can hold it for 15 or 20 or 30 years, and you don't have to pay the tax until such time as you actually sell it. But then, of course, the tax liability is also cumulative. So you're not paying the tax all along. You're simply paying all the tax all at once at the end. So why would we want to give those appreciated securities away? CRA is in the business of forgiving all of the taxes on capital gains when a security or any kind of bond or stock or whatever is donated in kind to a charity. So don't sell it yourself, but deliver that stock directly to the charity of choice. And if you want to give to the Food Grains Bank, they can take care of that themselves. If you decide you want to give it to a number of charities, then you can just distribute that through CSS to a number of charities. But the key there is that the charity receive the stock in kind. And then you receive a full donation receipt to offset any of the taxes. And you also receive a donation receipt for the full value of those securities. So let me just walk you through what that would look like. So let's say you bought some security stock for $10,000 and it grew in value over a number of years, perhaps to $50,000. And so that $40,000 increase is called a capital gain. Now, when we sell that $50,000 worth of stock, we have some tax to pay. And as I said before, 50% of the capital gain of $40,000 goes on your tax return. And if you're in the highest marginal tax brackets, you're looking at roughly 50% of that going to Mr. Trudeau. And so that's about 25% of the capital gain is sent off in tax. Now, rather than having $50,000 to spend, obviously after tax, you have about $40,800. But let's say instead of doing that, we simply give away the $50,000 in appreciated securities. The charity still receives full donation of $50,000. You receive a $50,000 charitable donation receipt, and you have no tax bill whatsoever. And so from the charity's point of view, rather than getting $40,800 and you getting a receipt for less than the $50,000, and you have a tax bill to pay, this is a much better way of dealing with your appreciated securities if you'd like to give that shares away, or those shares away. So what's the application to you? It makes a much bigger donation to the charity. So don't sell the security, but give it away. Secondly, it gives you an opportunity to rebalance your account. The old adage is to sell high and buy low. but you sell the stock that has gone, has appreciated, has gone up in value, and then you send that to your favorite charity, and then the cash that you were going to give to the charity, you can then use to buy whatever stock you want to replace for the one that you gave away. So it's a great way to rebalance your account and still eliminate that tax liability. Lastly, CSS can help. We can take care of the whole process, and we can certainly walk you through the process if that's necessary as well. The next one I'm going to talk a little bit about is the RRSP gift. Many people have some substantial savings in their RSP, and obviously maybe less tax or less cash on hand. And so they have an opportunity, rather than to give cash, to give some money from their RRSP. Of course, any withdrawal from an RSP creates a tax liability. And if you withdraw more than $15,000, there's also withholding tax of 30%. There's withholding tax on $1, but it escalates to 30% if you're removing more than $15,000. This can be avoided. The withholding tax can be avoided if you want to give that money to charity. We would recommend that you give us a call as to how to do that. But it's a Form 1213 that you need to fill in and send to Revenue Canada, and then those proceeds can transfer directly to a charity. The donor still reports the income. However, the donation receipt, of course, fully offsets the tax liability. Now, there is something called a 75% rule. You can't offset more than 75% of your income in any given year, except in the year of your death. So just be aware of that. Sometimes we have a donor who wants to give a very significant amount away, and we do run into that 75% rule. CSS has done this with a number of gifts ranging from $20,000 on the lower end up to over $1 million, and we can certainly help you to do that as well. So let's just walk through a really quick example. So a normal RSP withdrawal of, say, $25,000, the institution where your RSP is will withhold $7,500 and send that to Revenue Canada on your behalf as a prepayment of your tax liability. So that gives you a balance of $17,500 that is available to donate. So you would get a check for $17,500 for your $25,000 withdrawal. And obviously you can then donate that to your favorite charity. Unfortunately, you would have about a $10,000 tax bill on the $25,000 withdrawal, and you only have an offset of $7,000 roughly in donation credits. So that basically means that you still owe $3,000 in tax, assuming a 40% tax rate. So using the Form 1213, as I mentioned before, you also withdraw $25,000, but there is no withholding tax deducted at source. That gives you the whole $25,000 to donate to your favorite charity. The taxes owing are $10,000, but you also have donation credits of $10,000. So in that particular scenario, there is still nothing owing. And so the full $25,000 went to your favorite charity, and you owe nothing in tax as well. It's simply giving away a portion of your RSP proceeds. And for some people, especially those in their 70s and 80s and so on, who went through the 80s and 90s where, stocks and bonds and mutual funds were going up 10 and 12%. Sometimes they have a huge amount of money in their RSP, and their financial advisor will tell them they probably won't spend it all. And so this makes a great opportunity for them to use some of those proceeds for their favorite charity. So what's the application to you? It provides a new source of funds from which you can make some gifts. If those funds are withdrawn personally, as I went through that example, there is withholding tax amount. And essentially what you end up doing is paying tax on the withholding tax. And so the receipt would not eliminate all of the income tax that's payable. Using this method, you can make, excuse me, you can make some withdrawals, avoiding withholding tax, and then offset that entire tax bill with that donation receipt. And lastly, of course, this avoids any cash crunch that you might have where you're trying to fulfill a pledge or something like that to your favorite charity, and gives you another opportunity or another source of income or another source of meeting that pledge with some gifts. So moving on then to a little bit of estate planning. That's something that Christian Stewardship Services has been doing for the whole of the time that we've been in business, for the whole 49 years. And it's still a big part of the work that we do. So I'd like to walk you through that scenario just quickly. So estate planning is basically the process, first of all, of thinking through. And that makes a lot of sense. And if you think about it, it's pretty obvious that you need to think that through. But so often we meet clients that would like to or go directly to a lawyer, and they don't really take the time to think through what it is that they want to accomplish with their will. The next part is setting up those legal arrangements. And again, that seems so obvious, but a lot of times, again, they get to the lawyer and they haven't really think through the what they're looking to do. And so they get a little bit overwhelmed at the lawyer's office. And so the lawyer sends them a draft copy, but they really don't know what it is that they wanted in the first place. And so the draft may not meet their expectations, or they're confused. And so they never really get around to setting up those legal arrangements. And those legal arrangements, if you do get them set up, are then put in motion through a triggering event. Now, for most of us, that will be our death, but a good estate plan can have multiple triggering events, everything from the sale of a business to retirement to the birth of a grandchild, for instance, or any of those kinds of things that may trigger something within your estate plan. And looking at all the concepts or all the avenues to plan in an estate plan gives you lots of opportunity to do some of those things for your family. And then lastly, in accordance to your wishes, both while you're alive and at death. And again, that seems so obvious, but a lot of times I've seen wills that were put in place and they really didn't think through the tax planning or their family members. So they may have a disability in their family or a cottage in their family, and they really didn't think through how that would be dealt with in their estate plan. It's just simply divided amongst their children or something along those things, and the children have to try and figure out what mom and dad wanted without having any guidance. One of the little statistics I like to share with people is that over 50% of those who are over 50, like myself, do not have an up-to-date will. And I thought I'd just share a little story with you just to put that into perspective. 17 years ago, when I first started working for Christian Stewardship Services, I went home to my parents for a bowl of soup after Sunday church, and I asked my dad. I said during lunch, I asked my dad, do you have a will in place? And Dad said, "Oh yeah, of course I have a will in place. We did that 30 years ago, and so that was all finished." And I thought, great, check my parents off. They're all set. Later on, we were having a cup of tea on the couch, and I thought to myself, I'm the eldest in my family, and 25, 30 years ago, I wasn't old enough to be the executor. We don't have many family here in Canada. And so I thought, I wonder who Dad put as the executor. So I thought I'd ask him. Well, Dad had to think about it for a minute. And then he said, Uncle Tom is the executor of the estate. But of course, Uncle Tom had been deceased for going on 15 years, I think, by that time. And so we realized very quickly Dad was a dairy farmer when he wrote the will. He had a number of young kids and struggling to make it as a dairy farmer. And then, of course, when I was talking to him, he was already retired and so on. And so his financial uh, estate had changed significantly. And we came to the realization that he, of course, was one of those who was over 50. Although he had a will, it certainly was not up to date. And so he has passed away since, but I'm glad to say we did get a good will in place in the meantime. So the other thing that I wanted to just walk you through is some of the elements of what makes up an estate plan. Now, this is not an exhaustive list, but these are the main elements. And sometimes, depending on what kind of an estate you actually have, there may be a number of other pieces to it as well. So first of all is the last will and testament. Most people kind of understand what that's all about, but I will talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Power of attorney documents, again, I will talk about that in just 1 minute, but most people are aware of what those documents are about. Trusts, most of the time trusts do go into a will if there are underage children or one of the family members is a member with a disability, or possibly a second marriage, or any of those kinds of issues could generate the need for a trust. And then, of course, you may want to do some planned giving in your estate as well. So maybe a bequest, or when you sell your business or something along those lines, maybe you want to give some of those assets away to charity, offsetting a big tax bill. So that's something that we talk about as well. Insurance can be a good part of an estate plan. CSS does not sell insurance or any other product for that matter, but it certainly can be a good part of a well planned out estate plan. And then lastly, if you are a farmer or have another kind of business, sometimes a good succession plan can make a terrific piece of an estate plan as well. And we can help you to walk through that if that is necessary in your situation. So let me just talk a few minutes about some of the elements of a good estate plan. First of all, you have the power of attorney documents. There are 2 of them. There's a power of attorney for property and a power of attorney for personal care. And what you're essentially doing is delegating your decision-making authority to someone else. And so obviously, in the case of property, having somebody who's astute in perhaps in accounting or something like that. And then for a power of attorney for personal care, that's of course, on your own body. So the doctor comes to your bedside and asks, what treatment options or tells you what treatment options there are available, but you are unable to make that decision. And so who would do that for you? Maybe a spouse or a child or a trusted friend. And so these are becoming increasingly critical in an estate plan. People are living longer, and people with Alzheimer's or dementia or other issues may need these kinds of documents. But even somebody that ends up in the hospital, possibly in a coma for a little while because of a traffic accident or something like that, may very well need one of these in the interim. And so it is a very easy document to put into place, but very critical if you need one and you don't have one. And so the detail about power of attorney documents is that they expire at death or after some event. So a regular power of attorney would end at your incapacitation, and an enduring power of attorney would continue even after your incapacitation or is put into place because of it. Okay. So talk a little bit about a will itself. Why would we even need a will? A will obviously gives is a great blessing to those you leave behind. We've been involved in a number of cases and families where there was no will in place or a very old will that really didn't talk about what the current estate looked like. And so making sure not only that you have a will, but making sure that it's up to date is such a blessing for those that are left behind. It certainly provides for your dependents. That is an obligation within the will as well. You have to provide for your dependents, but it also gives you an opportunity to bless charity, bless a friend or family member who perhaps was extremely good to you or something along those lines that you would like to remember in your estate plan. You can distribute your assets according to your wishes, and remembering that things like trusts for children, especially those under the age of 18, those with special needs, special gifts. In my family, my father had a special watch that he got from his father, who got it from his father, and so on. I'm not sure how many generations up the chain it went, but I have that now. And so that's a very special gift to me, and it reminds me of my father. And but it also allows you to model stewardship for your family, especially for your children, and help them to understand your faith walk as well. It also allows you, of course, to choose your own executor, and having an executor that you trust and that is someone that can take care of the details is very important. And it allows you a recommendation for a guardian for your children who are underage as well. So it's a will is something that a lot of people overlook until usually in their 50s or 60s or maybe even later. But it is an important piece that of document, and for the price of it, you can't go wrong having a will early. Nowadays, they're easy to update as well. Most of the time, it's just a small update, and so the lawyer can fairly easily update those things at a minimal cost. Now, sometimes I get asked what happens if you die without a will. It's called dying intestate, and the good news is the government does not take it all. But as I said, it's called dying intestate or dying without a will. And so there are some government rules and laws in place that outline the guidelines for distribution. But of course, a lot of the things that you're allowed to do in a will, you can't do. Just to name one of those things is there would be no gift to charity, and so that would be omitted. So just to kind of give you a little bit of a sense of what those intestate rules look like, if you die intestate, your spouse, if you have one, gets what's called a preferential share, and every single province has a different formula for that. Here in Ontario, it's the first 200,000. I believe in Manitoba, it's half the estate, and so it just depends on what the provincial legislation says. Intestate rules also say that the children and the spouse divide the balance after the preferential share. So if you have 3 children, the balance of your estate gets divided into 4 shares. Your spouse gets 1 more share, and each of your children gets a share. Your children inherit at age 18. Now, I was 18 once, and had my parents passed away, and I received, a couple $100,000 or something like that at age 18. probably would not have made some good decisions with that money. And so generally speaking, people put those assets into some trust and spill those assets out once the child is a little bit older. And of course, you have no opportunity to choose a guardian. And so a guardian would need to be decided upon through the court system. And so that's usually not too pleasant for the children, particularly if they are underage and they really don't know what's happening. Another question I get asked fairly regularly is, can you write your own will? And the short answer is perhaps. It depends on the province that you're in. And I wasn't sure if Manitoba was one of the provinces, but it is, where you can write a holographic will. A holographic will is basically a will written in your own handwriting, completely with a pen, write it yourself and sign it yourself, and you don't need any witnesses or anything. It's not the most secure type of will, and if you make mistakes, there's no correcting it, obviously, and sometimes they are very easily contested as well. You can also do a typewritten will. A typewritten will is basically one that is done on a computer nowadays and printed out, but in a case like that, the tester or the person who is making the will needs to sign it, as well as two witnesses. And it is good form to make sure that the witnesses are not part of your distribution class or any of the beneficiaries. So your son or daughter or anything like that should not be witnessing the will. One thing to remember is any type of will that you write yourself, and I have seen many, they are easily contested. Often their directions are very unclear. I saw a will one time which basically said, you know, in more words than this, but I leave all my assets to my spouse, and then I leave my car to so-and-so, and this to so-and-so, and so on. And I pointed out to the person who wrote it that once he's given everything to his spouse, he can't continue to give things away because his spouse owns them all. So we just needed to correct that. But very unclear directions. Often those require interpretation by the courts, and as you can appreciate, that can be quite onerous as well as expensive. And sometimes very unwanted results or outcomes. I generally try to make sure that when we're talking to somebody about a will, we talk to them about the tax implications and how those assets are treated in the estate, which helps people to understand if you give one asset to one person and a different asset to somebody else, how you can equalize those types of assets. So making sure that you know, if you want to give each of your children an equal share, that is done properly. So getting to the work that Christian Stewardship Services does, it is quite an advantage to work with Christian Stewardship. All of the field staff members are certified financial planners, and we have a number of tools that are available to us that we have put into place. You'll notice along the bottom of my slide, I have a number of sort of the top ones. Certainly not an exhaustive list, but we have those tools, and we can certainly show you how to use them. And often they're used in combination with one another to make more effective plan, gift, or estate plan. And so getting a visit from a rep from CSS can be very beneficial and allows you to talk through how you would like to do an estate plan and what the implications might be to do what it is that you want to do. I just thought I would walk you through a very common type of gift to charity. It's called a child called charity. And just walk you through it very quickly and the implications of this type of gift as well. So making a few assumptions. First of all, we have this particular couple has 4 children. Each of the the couple is committed to several Christian causes, and their asset total is about $1 million, which in today's day and age is fairly modest estate, including $200,000 in a registered retirement savings program or a RIF. It doesn't really matter, but a registered program nonetheless. So let's say John and Mary go off to see the lawyer. The lawyer talks to them and says, Mary, if you pass away, does John get everything? And Mary thinks, yeah, that's a good idea. And he asks John the same question. If you pass away, John, does Mary get everything? And he says, yeah, I guess so. And so the lawyer says, and after the 2 of you pass away, equally divided amongst your children, and they look at each other, yeah, that seems like a good way to do it. And so the lawyer says, great, shakes their hand and says, come back in a couple of weeks and we can sign the will. So John and Mary get the will in place, and a couple years later, they pass away. So if they pass away with the plan that the lawyer outlined, their $200,000 is immediately taken out of the RRSP and becomes taxable. And roughly half of it would go to go in tax. And so that's about $100,000. There was no mention of charity in their estate plan. And so charity receives nothing. And so $1 million estate minus the 100,000 to Revenue Canada equals 900,000 divided by the 4 children equals $225,000 per child. So let's say instead of going to the lawyer, they first go to Christian Stewardship Services and talk to one of our agents. The conversation would be fairly similar. You know, ask Mary if John should get everything, John if Mary should get everything, and the children, divided among the children. And then, but the rep would also ask, did you want to include charity in your distribution? And John and Mary go, yeah, that's right. We've been good, generous givers throughout our life. We won't need the money anymore when we pass away. And so we do want to leave a child or a portion of our estate to charity. And so they decide on a child charity. And what that basically means is they adopt a 5th child, a child called charity, and that child or that charity portion would be equal to the distribution of their biological children. So plan B then, or the plan with the child charity, is the 200,000 again comes out of the RSP, but because 1/5, so the $1 million divided by 5 children, including the child charity, is 200,000. So 200,000 goes to charity, which completely offsets the tax liability on the RSP gift or the RSP liability. And so each of the children also receives 200,000. Most of the time when we explain this to parents or grandparents, they say, oh, it will be a $25,000 reduction for each of our children, but charity goes from 0 to $200,000. And so that seems like a really good deal to do it that way and divide the estate in such a manner. We also, CSS also has a gift distribution service, and that is often combined with that child charity or any size gift from an estate. And so that 200,000 that I talked about that would come out of the estate would then go to Christian Stewardship Services, and a letter of direction left behind by the will maker, the person who made the will, then distributes those assets, that 200,000, amongst their favorite charities. And so what happens is they can just update that letter of direction at any time. And so if they want to add a charity or subtract a charity or replace a charity in their letter of direction, they can easily do that. And often that happens, you know, we move from one place to another, and we would like to update the church that we worship to the new church or something along those lines. So a letter of direction offers a couple of benefits. First of all, it offers flexibility, no need to change your will every time you want to change anything about your charity distribution. Another one is privacy. Every time a beneficiary or a charity, as mentioned in the will, they should receive a full disclosure of the estate. And so that would just come to CSS. And if you have 5 or 6 or 10 charities on your letter of direction, there would be no disclosure to all of those charities. They would simply just get the check. It's simple, one check in one charitable donation receipt. And in most cases, the executor is usually, a son or a daughter who probably has never done this before. And so then dealing with CSS gives them a little bit of support, and we can help them walk through what is necessary or what the next steps are. And we do that fairly regularly for people. And then lastly, one of the offers or one of the benefits is anonymity if so desired. So it's not necessary, but if you would like to have those gifts go out anonymously, we can do that on your behalf. So as you can see, that was pretty easy. Actually, not really. It can be very complicated to put an estate plan in place. But the good news is that that's exactly why CSS is here, and to help clients to walk through an estate plan and help them to put together an estate plan that makes sense to them and also makes sense financially and based on the assets that they have as well. So with that, I will turn it back over to Julie. And as we often say, if you have decided in your heart to give, we can help. So I'll stop sharing my screen and we can go back to Julie.
Great, thanks, Maynard. I learned a couple things myself, which was actually very fascinating. So I appreciate that, especially in-depth information about will and estate planning. I'm over 50 and it made me think about the last time I've actually updated my will too. So we have a time for questions. If we have about 10 minutes left. If there are some questions, make sure that you put them in the chat and people will forward them on to me and I can give them to Maynard to answer. Also, if there are no questions now, but you think of them later, you can ask me and I can forward them on to Maynard, or his information is on the Legacy webinar page. So you'll be able to find a link to Christian Stewardship Services there, as well as some other providers that are common with our supporters, because we receive and work with a number of agencies and we're trying to keep them on that webpage so that if you have a natural affinity to a particular agency representing a denomination you're comfortable with, you can find them there. I will start off the question and answer period. We have in the past sometimes received questions about gifts of life insurance. Now, we are not set up to receive anything else than a designation, right? So if somebody had a life insurance policy and they passed away, then they can designate us as the recipients of that policy. But these folks had different questions, more specific questions. Could you describe what that looks like and how that works, Maynard?
Yes, I will keep it general because it can get a little complicated depending on what type of insurance product we're talking about. But in general terms, let's say I buy a life insurance policy when my children are young, and I buy that because if I die or my wife dies, then we have the insurance proceeds to look after our children until they're out of the house. So now I'm in my latter years, and my children are all out of the house, or they have children of their own, and so I don't need that insurance product anymore. And so I have a couple of choices. I can continue to pay the premium. Maybe depending on what life insurance I bought, sometimes, you pay the premium for 10 or 20 years and then there's no more premiums to pay. So I can keep the policy if I want, but I can also donate it to a favorite charity. So let's say I have a $500,000 life insurance, or it doesn't really matter what the face amount is. But what you do is you contact an organization like Christian Stewardship Services or Abundance or whoever, and they can walk you through the process. Essentially, what happens is an actuary figures out what the future value of that policy is, and it's based on your how long you've had the policy, your current age, and a whole bunch of other factors, including your current health, depending on if you can buy that insurance today. And so let's say you have a $500,000 term insurance policy, which really doesn't have a cash surrender value. You may get a receipt for, 50 or 60 or $100,000 because it's worth that to the insurance or to the charity. And so the charity would receipt you for that amount that the actuary calculates that the insurance product is worth. Then you hand it over to the charity, and then when you pass away, then those proceeds come to the charity, and depending on if the proceeds came to CSS, you would leave that letter of direction behind, and we would distribute that to the Canadian Food Grains Bank or wherever.
Great. Thanks. And I have another question. We have a number of folks, supporters who have farms. They're in the middle of succession planning or thinking about that, but have recently their farms that were family enterprises have become corporations where they're shareholders in those corporations. And sometimes we get questions about donating shares. How does that work for somebody who's in that kind of situation? Is that too complicated? Or is there a basic kind of question to answer there?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me how does succession planning work, but
Yeah, that's a whole other webinar, I
that's a
think,
whole other
actually.
webinar. Yes. No, private shares. So just take a quick step back. How do you get to private shares? First of all, generally what happens during a succession process. So mom and dad want to pass on the farm to one of their children or a number of their children. And so a couple of the kids take over the farm. Mom and dad have a lot of money invested in the farm. And so what they do is they do an estate freeze, it's called. And what that basically means is you freeze the value of the portion that that mom and dad own, and they receive preferred shares. And then the children who are taking over the farm receive common shares, and it's only the common shares that increase in value. Mom and dad's preferred shares stay at a fixed value, hence the term they're frozen. But embedded in that frozen share is a lot of capital gains. You bought the farm for say 100,000 and now it's worth 3 million or something like that. You have a huge amount of capital gain, and so the tax liability built up in those shares is enormous. So getting back to your question then, mom and dad may have many, many of these shares, and essentially all of it is, or most of it is taxable. And so rather than redeeming a whole bunch of those shares and spending the money and having a huge tax bill, they can give some of those shares to charity and offset a big chunk of their tax bill. The way that that works is the corporation assigns those preferred shares to the charity. So let's say to Christian Stewardship Services. Christian Stewardship Services then owns those shares, and then the corporation buys those shares back. And so let's say CSS receives $100,000 worth of shares. The corporation buys them for $100,000. That eliminates that tax liability, and it also gives us a number of other benefits to the mom and dad in this case. And so it is a little bit more complicated than simply an appreciated security gift, but it works essentially in the same way.
Great. Thank you
You
very
just need to
much.
get a lawyer involved with it rather than just the fund company.
Great. Thanks very much. Well, I don't see any other questions, and we're getting close to our time. So again, Maynard, I want to thank you very much for taking the time and spending the hour with us. We will have this video posted on our website if people want to refer others to watch it, or you can email us at Canadian Food Grains Bank and we can send you a link. And we also have Maynard's contact information if you would like to contact him at some point in time and can't find him through the regular channels. Although I noticed we put in the chat his contact information directly. So yes, thank you very much for attending, and I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.